Wait.
Hello, everybody. This is Will Harold with Akashic Intelligence, the original AI, also known as the Energy Hunter, as we hunt for different types of energy in the world and how it affects our bodies, our biomes, and all living beings that are sentient. Okay, so today we're going to talk a bit about spiritual sovereignty. This is number 4 in the series. This will be the last in the series for a while. We're going to go back and cover Russell again, but we want to take a little detour because Russell was pretty deep and talk a little bit about the occult and a little bit about Blavatsky and her views because we're trying to find where Russell may have been influenced within his spiritual path. And since he doesn't really cover cosmology much in this Secret of Light, we decided to diverge a bit and kind of maybe figure out where he was coming from his life perspective and the time that he came in and when he wrote the Divine Iliad back in the early 1900s. So if anyone's interested in that, that was really a lot of last week's number 03 for spiritual sovereignty, and you can go through that and see the timeline for what was going on when Russell was writing some of his books and what was going on with Blavatsky and within the United States. So this week we are going to go into spiritual sovereignty. This is 004 in the series. How then shall we live? And what this is trying to focus on is now that we've had these other three discussions on the occult and what's going on and who are the gods are within the definitions of Blavatsky and maybe some others. What we're going to look at now is how does that relate to me today? How can I put that into practice? You know, what can I work on in myself, or what do I need to do, or do I need to do anything? I mean, is this going to happen to me as Lao Tzu said last time, that you don't do anything? So what I did was this time I actually, I usually concentrate on Chinese or anthroposophists or theosophists. Today I concentrated on the Bible and Eckhart Tolle. So the first one we're going to look at here is from the book of James. He's also known as James the Just, brother of Jesus. And this is a pretty well-known quote, even though I took this quote from the I think it's a New English translation or the Living Bible, one of those two, just because it was a little bit different. They're all pretty close. I mean, this is one of those quotes that pretty much everybody doesn't differ at all. The only difference in this one is the word actions. So the quote is, "So then, as the body without the spirit is dead, also faith without action is dead." And some of you may have seen this as faith without works is dead. So it's a very, very well-known quote. And what this quote's a little bit about is that there was a very big, I wouldn't say a big, but as James came into the body of the believers, the idea that Jesus or grace could save you and there's nothing you really needed to do. You just sat around and kind of bask in the Spirit, and your faith would justify you. And that was really a lot from the Abrahamic law, that through Abraham, faith had justified him, and that he had to do nothing for it. And so when James penned this, he also saying that it's if you have faith, or you have a belief in how you should live today, that would manifest itself in your life through your actions. So with this is a book that Martin Luther did not want in the Bible when he was during Reformation, because he wanted the doctrine of grace to be the main doctrine in the Bible. And this one actually has a little bit to do that maybe it's not all grace, that we do have to take action. So think
Which
a
one?
little.
Martin Luther King?
No, Martin Luther, who was the Reformation, the one who Martin Luther King Jr. is named after.
Oh, okay.
So Martin Luther was a German who actually put on the Catholics' Pope's door a dissertation which said that you don't need priests to get to God, basically, and that was the beginning of the Reformation. And he wanted, and he was the big instigator of printing the Bible in German from Latin, so that it was accessible to all people.
Good idea.
But he did not like this book. Oh, so far as what I've read in the past is that this was not one of his favorite books, nor this quote. Any thoughts on? So then, as the body without the spirit is dead, also faith without action is dead. Or you can say faith without works is dead.
What's works? Sounds like drug dealers.
Well, again, works is really, you could call it the fruit of the spirit, as how are you manifesting your faith in the 3D? You say you like charity. Who are you giving to? Oh, I'm giving to myself. Is that really charity? Is that really works? Is that really, action in what you believe? So there, the analogies I've been given is the Pharisees, in order to not give to support their parents or even their families, would say, I've dedicated everything to God. So I've dedicated all my wealth to God, so therefore I can't give it to you. It's all dedicated to God. So is that really, a faith or an action that's manifesting their faith of what they're saying? So works is, it's how you live. Is how you live in alignment with what you preach or what you talk or what you say or what you say you
your
believe.
life's work.
Yes, exactly. I mean, is that in alignment with, do you practice what you preach is another, way to say it, right?
Oh, do you want us to answer or just say what do we think about the comment?
You can answer. You can do it. How does it strike you in any way? Have you thought about it before?
I mean, I feel like I more or less, live how I think, but I'm not able to kill enough governors and senators every day, but yeah, I don't want to go to jail yet.
Okay, so we know you're not a pacifist.
Well, actually, I am.
Well, we might have a discontinuity there.
He's a reluctant pacifist.
Something about evil. You're supposed to get rid of evil. I feed the squirrels and the skunks.
Anybody else?
I like the skunks.
Okay. 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 Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think where the rubber meets the road, we have a good opportunity to kind of put this into practice where you're confronted with like a COVID restriction or mandate, and you stand up for really what you believe and feel rather than just complying because it's the easy way out. So that's how I'm kind of putting that into practice personally.
Yeah, I think the compliance is a bad route, but an interesting other alternative to standing up and confronting directly is what we discussed a little bit in the when you showed the Loki scene.
Mm-hmm.
And that man did end up standing up, but there's also the action of just turning away and ignoring, and that's an action too. Like just don't give your attention to the bad force. So I think they both have their place, but it's just an interesting other way of taking action.
Yeah, and for me, I know that is one of my biggest struggles, is that what the eye takes in, the soul becomes in some ways. And I really, I don't watch pornography or anything, really sick, but the things that I do watch probably aren't beneficial to my psyche overall for some things, right? So I think that also what we partake in, right, or what we read or what we look at and watch can also be a big interrupter into our spiritual journey because we're getting programmed, right? The
Yeah.
more of us have, go ahead.
Turn off the TV.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Well,
Exactly.
I haven't turned mine on in 7, 8, 9 years now.
Yeah. It's a form of walking away from it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was hard,
I
man.
haven't had one since after university, so here you go. So doesn't really matter to me. It's not that important. But
I watched so
anyway,
much,
yeah.
so many years of TV. Oh my God.
You know, so they say the eye is a receptor to the soul, right? So
Yeah.
sometimes maybe it's just like Grant's saying is that, you know, as we live, what are we taking in and what are we allowing to influence us? So the next,
Yeah, and to piggyback on
Okay.
what you, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
From the eye of the soul perspective, it's like you want to be aware of what's evil or something that maybe doesn't align with your spirit, but you also don't want to be identified with it. So like the way I kind of interpret it is like, be aware of evil, but remain neutral, because when you're in that neutral space, you're not giving your spirit or your eye to that thing that you don't want. Because I was finding that I was manifesting all this stuff that I was actually fighting against in the COVID world, all these programmed idiots, you know. And then at the end of the day, like, how far is programmed idiots from useless eaters? I mean, that's what the elites call us, is useless eaters. So it's like, at the end of the day, we're all humans and we're all one family and we need to be together. So that's just one example. But sorry to interrupt you, Will.
that's great. And no, I appreciate the feedback. So let's go on to the next one here, because I think what Grant had just expressed really feeds into this next quote, which is from Eckhart Tolle, and it is, life will give you whatever experience is most helpful for the evolution of your consciousness. How do you know this is the experience you need? Because this is the experience you are having at the moment. And oftentimes we don't really, as we look to our sovereignty, we look to our gods, we look to our, theology, look to our cosmology, it's why me, God, why is this happening to me? Why this, why that, right? And when we get into that type of mindset, we may be missing the lesson that's coming for us. And we may be actually taking something that could be a positive and turning it into a negative. Oftentimes people will look back on their life and say, wow, I'm really glad that happened to me because it was an experience that I grew through and learned from. So any comments on this about life will give you whatever experience is most helpful for the evolution? Again, the law of evolution, remember that was the #1 law in the natural laws, a law of evolution of your consciousness. How do you know this is the experience you need? Because this is the experience you are having at the moment.
I just found during this time that it's helped me get rid of all kinds of attachment, I guess I'll say, and to kind of go back to essential. And yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I'm not working, so maybe I'm not facing what other people have, and I don't have any children in school. But at the same thing, it's like what the one at the bottom, Brian, is it Brian? I don't know. There's no name there.
Grant
said, well, no, I've forgotten already, but I see a lot of stuff on the sites that I help, and I'm trying to be closer to nature, trying to help people, and at the end, I'm as happy as can be, even though this is all happening. Like, so I don't know. I think, and also if we're strengthening ourselves now, we can help other people that may be finding it hard right now. I think I do anyway. I try.
It's an awakening.
I'm finding more people that are showing love to, you know, in a bigger way, if you like. That's what I'm finding as well.
Well, it sounds like you're staying away from most of the world. So
No. I mean, I
That's
was
not
just,
what's going on,
I
you
had a
know.
mattress delivered today. I haven't had a mattress in 22 years or something. So I'm coming in with the movers right in. Sure enough, who do I meet? The same guy who's asked me 7 times during this whole year, how come you're not wearing, you know what?
Yes,
I said, well, I've told you before, I'm exempt or something. You know, I
In
don't.
in your apartment?
Yeah, in the condo. But he'd always ask. It's like a running story with them. Like they just like to ask. It doesn't matter. Like it's me in front. They're gonna ask that question, even though we've had conversation. It doesn't sink in. It just, and I said, yeah, and then we move on. You know, let's keep moving. Like, you know, I'm not gonna get upset about it. It's his, you know, his perception. So yeah, I'm not totally, no, I go down on the street every day in my neighborhood. I see all kinds of stuff. But anyway.
So are we in agreement though that this is a time of evolution of our consciousness, and that what we experience is what we've chosen, that maybe we came in at this time and we've chosen this experience of life? And that we're doing it and it's not being done to us, I guess, would be the big question.
I think it's true.
I mean, you're getting into questions of karma and things like that, right?
Well, that's where we're going.
We also choose how we react.
Mm.
Every day we observe ourselves and we decide how the next day is going to be, or we can reflect. So, you know, it's changed a lot from February of 2020, for example, you know. And anyway, it's for sure.
I'm reading that Manly Hall crap, so I'm really nuts lately. That book that I showed you with the fire is unbelievable, how it ends.
Yeah, I can't. Yeah, Manly P. Hall has some really great work, very, very deep.
But he claims that our whole body is like the universe, that we are the universe. And he relates each thing. And you know.
We're going to talk a little bit about that today also.
Very cool.
Okay, so let's go ahead and move on now. That's just what we're going to have. There are just lots of ideas. So here are the questions we're going to talk about today. Hopefully that was a good introduction, kind of just to get us focused on how then shall we live. So the first thing we're going to do is review Walter Russell's concepts of cosmic consciousness. That was from way back from chapter 1 and 2, almost 20 weeks ago. It's been a long time. It doesn't seem that long. What is Rudolf Steiner's view of cultural epochs and the evolution of the human body? What is the difference between gods from Venus and gods from Mars, per G.G. Jung? Who are the one-eyed gods as described in the Secret Doctrine? Will the gods save us from injustice, or must we experience our own karma, as Jeremy saw earlier? How may man assist natural law? And what can man do to break the spell? So these are the topics we're going to talk about a bit. So let's go ahead and start with the review of Walter Russell. So from Walter Russell's Cosmic Consciousness Review, from chapter 1, the eternal question, which was on page 12 through 16, his question was, what planet will be the next repetition for man? And from page 9, the answer was Venus. And this is the exact words from the book. The ascent of man from the dark to the light is the forever repetitive play of man on the planets of suns. When all mankind has found the light, the play will be finished. Likewise, this planet will be finished as an abode for man. It will then be rolled off into its ever-expanding orbit, while Venus is gradually being rolled into place to become the stage for the next repetition of the ascent of man in this solar system. Any comments on that from what Walter Russell wrote? Do you think that we are, first of all, do you believe that we are here for an ascension? Is that why we come to Earth, that we are here. Is that a purpose? That we're here to learn and to ascend to a next level, a next planet, a next existence.
I believe we're here to do the next step, yes. Ourselves and the planet itself. And why Venus? Well, Venus is like our sister. She's further away. She's further on the path than Earth. And yeah, until everybody has found the light, and this is not going to happen tomorrow. So some people think, yeah, this ascension thing, yeah, I see it as a progression, like as an evolution, and we're going to make, some of us will have maybe a little bit better consciousness, closer to God, but I'm not seeing like we're going to be taken and literally like that, no. But yeah, I can see why Venus from what I'm reading, or from Walter Russell, but others, yeah.
I thought Venus was younger, hence smaller. As it goes out, it gets larger. I mean, according to Russell, anyway.
Well, it's farther away from the sun, I think, is the point. And so it's farther along on its journey.
Isn't it closer to the sun? Where's Venus? I thought Venus was closer to the sun than we are.
I think it's farther. I think it goes Mercury. And it goes, yeah,
Mercury,
no, it is.
Venus.
Venus, you're right. It's
Yeah,
closer.
Mercury, Venus,
Right.
Earth,
I mean,
Mars,
we already did.
right?
Mars we finished with. It moved
Yeah.
away. We're
And
on Earth.
Saturn. Yeah.
Venus
Yeah,
is,
so we're going closer in, correct.
yeah, I think Venus is younger than Earth, from my understanding of what Russell claims anyway.
Yeah, and
It's smaller as they're closer to the sun, he says. As
so it's being prepared for us as we get closer to it.
That's what I understood from reading Walter Russell, and nothing else. That's where
Good
I'm getting.
point. Thank you for that. Anything else?
One thing that comes up for me is I've always kind of been, I get that we need to help our fellow like brothers and sisters wake up, and that's like why a lot of us light workers came into this realm into the first place. But like I kind of always was under the impression that those that are like fast asleep and don't want to wake up, there might be a split in consciousness where like you kind of I don't know. That's just my take, but maybe that's my way of saying I don't have to be here for that long.
Well, and that's what Steiner talks a lot about, is that there's other entities that did not progress, that fell back.
Backdrop.
And they actually still may inhabit these planets that we came from. Some of the Saturn and moon beings and other things that did not progress and did not. And there will be humans maybe that do the same thing in this ascension, that don't progress to the next to Venus and stay on the Earth. And those entities, and that's really the kind of the question is that the true cosmology? Is that what's really going on? Are we humans here to ascend and to go through these planetary phases, and some will fall out and create beings in their own worlds and their own lives? And are some of these things we're seeing now, like Gigi Young says, that this is almost like a phase shift where we're being able to see some of these beings that were degraded or did not ascend, and then we're seeing some that did ascend in other time frames. So this is kind of like that time where there's multiple portals open, and we're beginning to be able to enter into those other dimensions and other worlds that we weren't to at other places in time, that we only knew about but really couldn't experience. So that's some of the questions I'm talking about now, because as we form our cosmology, these are some of the questions we may need to answer to actually get a grasp on what we create. Are we creating this whole idea? Are we creating this whole experience? Are these real, or is it archangels and archons and these other things? I mean, where do these come from? Are they real in our cosmology, or are we just each person makes up his own as he goes, and all we do is sit and experience all these things? Or do we need to take action? Is action a key to our existence? As James said, that we can have faith in all these things, but How are we manifesting that in our daily lives today? Are we taking action? Are we moving forward? What are our works? What are our fruits? Right? So that's, where I'm kind of beginning to look at some of these areas to see as we develop our cosmology. And that's why Russell, within his cosmic consciousness, which was a movement of its own at the time, cosmic consciousness, it really came out in the early 1900s also. And that was the term that was being bandied around, as we talked about, I think, in one of the earlier lectures, discussions. So from chapter 4, Cosmic Consciousness, how many cases of partial cosmic consciousness are known? And from page 27, less than 40. So what this portion is from chapter 4 of Russell this is really where he's talking about the bodhisattvas that we talked about with Blavatsky. If you remember, there was the Manu, and then there was a bodhisattva. The Manu dealt with law, and the bodhisattva dealt with love and intelligence. So within Walter Russell's cosmology, he's saying there's 40 of these people, and we gave the list of those people. It's like Buddha and Jesus, and I think even Blavatsky made it into the newer list. But there's a lot of those, the people that were Krishna, all those type of people that came before us that were actually helpers with the race. And so he also says, of all mystics, Jesus was the outstanding example of all time. He was the only one in all history to have known complete cosmic consciousness. So Russell's having this differentiator between Jesus and the rest of the bodhisattvas, that although other ones had partial, Jesus was the only one who had complete. The Bible refers to cosmic consciousness experience as the illumination, or being in the light, or in the spirit. In all of history, less than 40 cases of partial cosmic consciousness are known, and probably not more than 3 of these anywhere near approach the complete state of illumination experienced by the Nazarene. And again, the Nazarene just refers back to Jesus because that was the area that he was from Nazareth. And maybe that gets back into, you don't have last names, you have your only name, Jesus of Nazareth, so Jesus and the location he was in. That's a sovereignty issue that some people are exploring today. So any ideas on cosmic consciousness and bodhisattvas, and are those part of your cosmology? Are they something that you experience or think are necessary for the evolution of man? You could also call them ascended masters.
I think they were all the same person. They just made up new stories about the same ones, since they match too well.
So you're seeing it more as a consciousness, like a Christ consciousness that comes in.
Well, I think I don't think there was all these different ones. I think there was just one, and they just repeated the story for different people. From a lot of people say that.
Mm-hmm. Like Melchizedek. I talked about Melchizedek also, that he was, some people call him Christophanes if you're Christian, that they're early manifestations of Christ, or Christ was a later manifestation of Melchizedek, who knows, right?
They were all the same. If you go back, the stories are exactly the same. What Santos talks about it a lot also. Mm-hmm. And the stories are exactly the same. The Trinity and the 12 and all that crap. I don't know it very well, but.
So do you think that those entities, those expressions of those, once they incarnate, remain? Like, do you think that you can see Christ and Buddha and Zoroaster?
I guess you see in the same, in each person can see. If it's the same person, it doesn't change. Mm-hmm. I don't know how you can see the different ones, but it's the same. If it's the same one, you can still see different ideas of the same one.
So what you're saying is that you may see that which you relate to, or that you find common with.
That's how I think about it, yeah.
But couldn't you also see that as kind of like fundamental patterns that are manifesting over and over again in people throughout history? And maybe that's another way that the same stories exist. And if these patterns are some kind of like intrinsic mathematics or of the underlying energy fabric. Like you could have the same repetitions or rhythms as we've talked about as they come in, and to get back to the idea of different kind of levels, you know, if we've repeated this idea of like Russell's got the octaves and so like it could be that these same kind of patterns keep kind of coming in. My son really wants to listen. He's trying to plug in the other headphones. Here, I gotta put him on.
Sure.
Okay. But anyway, I think you get the gist of my idea. And it's just another way of thinking about that.
So you're saying more of like a resonance that's occurring within a frequency or vibration that maybe that's is
yeah, it could be like a an energy that resonates and comes in and incarnates in people and grants them gifts and insight. Because the one of the ideas that I thought was really interesting was that Jesus was the person, Christ was the consciousness, Christ was the embodiment of the energy that, you know, kind of filled Jesus, the vessel, and so maybe that's like, you know, your vessel's receptiveness to this energy allows for different incarnations of the kind of original energy to appear.
Yep. Go ahead, Grant.
That's beautiful, Jeremy. I really like that. And I would also add that like the original human, like hue, HU, as in like a hue of light, super light consciousness, we were here to kind of come in and elevate the planet into a super light. And the Christ consciousness is like the perfect template that we can all look towards to accomplish that, because we're all the fallen angels, right? Trying
we've
to
fallen into matter,
reach
yes.
to that.
Fallen into matter, yes.
Yeah, into the darkness, and our mission is to get back up into the super light or the true light. So I think the Christ consciousness is like a tool or a template that you can use to accomplish that. So I kind of agree with basically what everyone said here.
Yeah, I missed a bit of that, but were you saying that the hue in human is like the color spectrum hues, and that, all right, okay, that's interesting. Yeah,
It's almost like your aura, you know, it's a hue.
Almost like your aura, you know, it's a hue.
I should find my aura photo that we did a while ago and show you guys. I don't know where it is right now. I'll try to remember it for a future.
No one else thinks that most of it's a lie.
What's that?
What's
No one
most
else
of
thinks that most of it's like stories, lies, you know, basically is the key word there.
I don't think it's lies. I think there's too much.
I don't mean all of it. I mean the repetitive story.
What when you say, what do you mean? Like that? Like did Christ actually go to a cross? Was he born in Nazareth? I mean that part, or that what he was teaching was a lie?
Well, no. I'm saying like if there was a Shiva and there was the other one. I mean, which one actually really happened? Which story is true? And then with the story with Columbus and all the other historical nonsense that went on. I mean,
Okay, well, I don't know if Columbus was a bodhisattva. I know he had a special purpose and a special mission, but I don't know. But I think we have to separate historical fact from spiritual truth, because historical fact can be manipulated. The spiritual truth would be within the Akashic record, and so when people intuit that, and that's supposedly what Blavatsky or Steiners or the masters did or do, that they're actually reading the Akashic record. So that would be true. So, you know, when we're looking at Blavatsky, and again, this leap that you take is when you read the Secret Doctrine, the whole concept behind that is that you have initiates, that you have secret occult schools and sciences that are reading the Akashic record. They're not reading the book. They're not going down to the library. They're not reading Herodotus or, you know, any of these other historical books, right? They're reading the Akashic record. So those spiritual truths are kind of, again, this gets back to what is our cosmology? Is our cosmology based on spiritual truth, spiritual sovereignty, or is it based on man's knowledge in books, which we know how Russell feels about that, right? That there is that we have to stay within the knowing. And that knowing is not a lie, right? Now, the historical facts around that knowing may be a lie, maybe disinformation, maybe all kinds of things, psyops, we don't know. But that's why it's so. Go ahead. Go ahead, Jeremy. Or
Well, I just wanted to add a little thing on the, the Doug, you're kind of concerned about the lies of history and things like that, and it reminds me of one of the things that Mark Passio talked about.
Concerned is not the right word, but go ahead.
Sure, yeah, and I don't want to dwell too much on it, but
okay.
Thinking about Mark, one of the things that I took away from Mark Passio's stuff is how a tiny twist to the story, you can, I forget if this was the exact analogy, but the visual that I took away from it is that you can serve up a buffet of truth, but if you just overturn one little item on the buffet, it can turn the whole thing into a new light. So basically, like, you have a foundation of almost truth, but you can shift things, and I think that's like a diabolical trick that is employed. But there's so much there is so much truth in what you are taking in, and it's very challenging to figure out, like, well, what's upside down. But it's like,
historical stuff. You're going now. You're going the opposite of what we just said a minute ago.
Doug, what I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what I think you're pointing at is, like, when I was I was raised Catholic, and when I was going to like Sunday school and stuff, I kept on, like, asking why are we worshiping this torture instrument, like, and at the end of the day, like, I'm looking at it like, this is blood and fire sacrifice. There's no way around it. So, like, I think like what Jeremy was saying, like, one little twist of the wrist or one little flip of one little fact, and we'll just totally kind of flip all the context and confuse everyone. Well, we didn't lie, but
that's history. That's not religious.
The message is fucked up.
That's history.
Yeah, and that's why I think that, one, we have to get back to the roots, right? The first root is, are we manifesting it all ourselves, or are we being told lies and they're manifesting it, right? So if we're manifesting it, if we take that as the number one truth, right, that we're manifesting everything that we see, everything that we are, then somehow we have to play into this lie of history ourselves, because we've manifested that in some means or some way. And why is that happening, right? And I don't know. I don't.
History, though. You're only living in this moment, no?
Yeah, we're living in this moment, but again, I'm manifesting you. Okay, you're manifesting me. We're manifesting dialogues. We're manifesting this whole thing. Okay, and we have to accept, I think, our role in this manifestation, because it's part of our ascension. And how that is manifesting within, we would say, a lie. I mean, who knows? I mean, who knows what history really was? It's hard to even say what was a lie and what wasn't a lie, because that's why Steiner says the only way that you can know anything is through intuition and through cosmic consciousness, right? So we have to kind of put history aside, but there may be a thread that runs through, and that's like within Steiner's cosmology, which is Blavatsky's. Blavatsky, Steiner came from Theosophy. And the reason that we're having this discussion is because, is there an occult knowledge? Is there occult knowledge that there is a thread that runs through the human consciousness of ascension that has an semblance of truth, regardless of the Roman Empire or all these different things, or when they happened and so on? Because to me, those are just kind of bumps in the road. They're tacks for your tires to get caught on. It's almost like we have to begin to put up what our bases are. And the first one is, how much of this do we create, and how much are we victim to? So are we victim to their lives, or are we somehow creating that also? And if we are, what in our souls, what can we change in our souls, in our consciousness, in us, to get rid of that? I mean, there's examples of that when it's cloudy outside or rainy or stormy or a drought, that we're causing that. It's not happening to us, that we're causing that. So it's not that big a stretch to say if there's lies being told, we're part of that in some way, that's part of what we're manifesting. And so is that manifestation part of our, our supra-consciousness, as Swedenborg would say, or the collective unconscious, as Jung would say, or the Akasha, as, the mystics would say? But I think at some point, we have got to just accept that we don't know that we don't know the past besides what we intuit, and so a lot of those other things that we're talking about are just facts. And within Russell's cosmology, facts are, you can't learn those from books. Anytime that you learn anything from a book, you're almost wasting your time.
I agree with that.
So when we talk about all that stuff, we're kind of wasting our time talking about it, right? When we're talking about the facts. And that's why I think we have to separate ourselves from, facts of books. And is there an eternal cosmology that dates back to the beginning? If you can even say that, because Russell didn't really believe in a beginning, but is man going through an ascension process? Is that what we're doing? Are we ascending? I mean, is there a time for man that it's maybe occurring all at the same time, because time is its own relative thing, but are we going through an ascension process? Because let's just look at this next quote here. So from Russell, there was a question: does any of the creation have the ability to think at the beginning of its power? And he says, no, it takes millions of years for a complex. So what he's saying is that, within the cosmology of Russell, we are the same. Our consciousness is the same as it's always. It's not the same as it's always been. It's evolving. That's the number one law. Because if there was no law of evolution, it wouldn't be the number one law of natural law, right? We'd come in completed. What would evolve? There's nothing to evolve. So if we go back just within our cosmology again, what's the given? What's the basis? The law of evolution. If we're evolving, that means that we have to be on some type of progression. If there is, otherwise there's no law of evolution, or there's the law of disintegration. I mean, we have to be going in the opposite direction. It's like when you do business, the very first thing a good business consultant will tell you is you cannot stay at the level you're at your business. There is no stasis in business. You're either growing or you're shrinking, right? And that's the same way in life. You're either growing or you're shrinking. Same way in your soul. You're either growing or you're shrinking. And it's up to you, through your action, again, I'm saying through action, of which way we decide to go. It's either action, I think we ascend, and no action, we descend, right? And maybe if it's action in the negative, I don't know, because negative and positive are, like I said, very tough concepts. Because sometimes by the negative action, we actually learn something that helps us to ascend, right? So it's tough to say but by doing nothing, we learn nothing. If we just sit in a room or in a cave and think, we never get a mirror of what's happening. We never really have a testing ground.
Well,
I would also add to that, like, it's not necessarily about action, but it's also about like integrity. Like, are you following the integrity of your soul, or are you gonna get the vax because you don't want to lose your job? If that's a moral thing that you stand by. So
yeah, I think we certainly have evolved in the sense, if you look at our bone structure, your body, they claim that the solar plexus was, I don't know, multiple pieces or something at one point, and now it's one merged together. And they claim that at some point man and woman will be one human millions of years from now, and that we won't, we'll be just one. It won't be two sexes. It'll be both in one thing. So I believe we're moving forward. What I meant was I didn't believe all the stories along the way. possibly.
And that's really mythology, and it's man trying to make sense of what we've also done, I think, maybe sometimes, because a lot of this was occult knowledge, secret knowledge, so there had to be something going around, right? Let's look at Steiner's map. Let's look at Steiner's map of cultural epochs in the human body, and this might shed some light on what we're talking about. So within Steiner's cosmology, he talks about these cultural epochs of the post-Atlantean time. So as we know, there was within Blavatsky's, you had the Lemurian, and then you had the Atlantean, and then you had, kind of the Greek age. And so within this, he's showing the Indian epoch and the American epoch. So I believe this goes up and then goes down, because that was really kind of, so within the Indian epoch, we actually developed our ether body. So what he'd be saying is just within this time of ascension, that during this time, during this Indian epoch, all we really had was our physical body and our etheric body. Okay, that we weren't a multi-dimensional body that we are today, or we did have them, they just weren't developed. We may have more bodies that we develop later as we ascend farther. I don't know, but the key here is that even during the Lemurian times or during the Atlantean times, and these were all, as you talked about, Doug, we looked at last week with Blavatsky, during the polar times, it was the fire body, right? We were like fire spirits, then we went to water spirits, and then earth, and then right now, with the time we're in now is the ether spirit, right? Which is the spirit of the air, the spirit of technology, the spirit of the wave. Even the Bible talks about that we don't fight against principality, flesh and blood. We fight against principalities of the air, that this is the time, the information age, is that man, within this ascension time, he's actually changing his body and his structure and how he relates. So this is the time of the ether, which is the Aryan race. That's what the Aryan race is called, is the time of the ether. So within that, there's actually these subtopics too, which would be called the Indian epoch, the Persian epoch, so within the Indian epoch, this would be back, to the Vedas, that kind of thing, to that type of beginning. And that was really the ether body that was being developed at that time within those teachings. So oftentimes it was said that Christ came when he came, because he would not have been understood during the Indian epoch, because they hadn't developed those bodies. I'm not saying they're dumb or they're inferior. I'm just saying that they weren't at that stage of growth within the mind. The whole human race was not the Indians. And that when I'm talking Indian, this is the Asian Indians, not the American Indians. Could be American Indians, but Columbus gave them that name. But so they were into the etheric body. And then during the Persian epoch, they were into the astral body. And then during the Egyptian, Chaldean, Babylonian epoch, they were into the sentient soul. So, this is the one God. This is the Shekinah glory. This is when you start getting into Judaism, and the ideas that came out. So, like during the Indian epoch, you were talking about, these Vedas and the blue gods and different things up here. During the Persian, you were more into Zoroastrianism and a different idea. Within the Egyptian, Chaldean, Babylonian epoch, you had different ideas of the soul and the body. And then during the Greco-Roman, you had the rational soul, which is when you got into Aristotle and Socrates and Plato. Okay, so, and this is back here, the Indian epoch, they would not have been able to understand Plato or Socrates, not because they were dumb, it was just not part of, the body had not ascended to that soul yet, to that soul level, or had not created that or developed that portion of their body, of the multi-level body that they have. Then from the Greek, we went to the German Celtic. Now I believe these may be both ascending down. Okay, I didn't really.
Yeah, I'm confused as hell.
So these may be the German Celtic. was
is
it,
that
was,
levels?
what? Yes,
Is it levels
yeah,
together?
it's level. These are together. These should be together. So this American epic, I would say that the American epic had to be American. This could be American in terms of South American. I probably should have researched this a little bit more, but I believe they all come down here pretty much the rational soul. So within this, you have spirit self, you have life spirit, and then you have spirit man. So within Steiner's cosmology, you have these different epochs in which different levels of the soul are being created and being grown and being introduced. So if you come from a previous epoch, you would not be able to understand the downstream epochs that were to come. So as we come into this, this rational soul of the Greco-Roman, I would have to say that that's where we are today, because that's really where we're going to go down from there into materialism, into the mind, and into mentalism and thinking more.
Unluckily.
Right. Well, again, it's I wouldn't say unluckily. It's really how we approach each of these epochs, right? To say that that we have an ether body that may be emotional and feeling. If we're just emotional all the time, I don't know how much you'd want to be in that world either. If that had no discernment, right? If that world had no discernment either. And so a lot of this is, as we develop these bodies, as we develop these new ways of living, new ways of seeing, new ways of experiencing, where are our teachers, right? Where is this something that we all learn by ourselves? Do we have guides? Do we have spirit guides? Do we have physical guides? Do we have bodhisattvas? Do we have ascended masters? What's happened is we've really lost any school of teaching. I mean, as of right now, I think it'd be hard for anybody to say that we really have a school besides science. Science
is broken.
And science is the current religion, though, right? It really is, even though they don't admit it. That's the current religion that most people learn from. But we don't have any Vedas, or we don't have any, Socrates or Plato's or Aristotle's out there that are really saying, this is the thread. This is the thread that has come down to us from the ancients, and that has been the common thread throughout our existence. And I mean, there are some, I'm seeing, but again, that's just an algorithm almost, right? I mean, because, Google can point us in that direction, right? By what we're looking up, almost. So are we actually beginning to coalesce in this ascension time and beginning to, as we begin to study Russell, as we begin to study Steiner, as we begin to look at all these different people that what is their common thread, right? What is the commonality within them that we relate to, and that is their cosmology that makes us common as a human and within the ascension process. So any comments of what I've said today to Tom on this?
Well, to me, we're mastering, first we mastered the physical to do with the yogas, that people used to practice.
Mm-hmm.
And today, we don't need to contortion our whole body to make sure that our body is functioning at the right level and all that. We've done that. And now, we're more mind for sure. And we are trying to get more discernment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And wherever we are at today, we're trying to understand what reality is all about. That's for me anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And what could I do at this particular time? And so I can understand why we went through all those epochs, because
Mm-hmm.
when you look at the trend and the new people that came in, more light came in when we
Mm-hmm.
needed it, like when we were ready to receive it, if you like. So that's how I see it. I mean, I'm not saying I know Steiner's epoch
Mm-hmm.
thing, but it's it's all coming to that. Like when you start looking at how the Egyptian looked at the, the death or and all this, we were all trying to figure out, there's more than this physical world for sure. So I just think that we can have a connection to the divine now, because we have we have mastery over quite a bit of things. Like we don't get captured as much with events out there, or I have to have that piece of cake. I know I'm being, flippant, but basically, we've gone through all these steps, even from when we were born. And then we get to a point like at 21, like if you study Steiner, it talks about every 7 years, like, and the development of the body, as a kid. And then, you start asking questions. You start asking, there's got to be something more than what's out here. So yeah, to me, it's the development of our consciousness.
And I'd like to point out up here at the top this is also from Steiner, right? Which again, then this is kind of why I've been using the word action a little bit, because within this diagram, he uses the term action here, right? Which started with the eye, then went to the astral, then to the etheric, and then to the physical and the senses. So this is very, reminiscent of Russell, right? Where we talk about the sensing body and the physical body. The eye began to start, right? As the drop of consciousness came out of the ocean, stayed in the ocean, but began to, develop its etheric cocoon or nuclear cell membrane, say, right? Where it began to differentiate from the one as I, right? Then we begin to do the astral body, right? The etheric and the physical. And between these, you have thinking, right? So within the etheric and the physical, so you have the brain and the feeling creates this thinking, right? And then between the etheric and the astral, you have the feeling, right? Because this is kind of as above and our emotional, you have the feeling. And then in between the astral and the eye, you have the willing, which I think Russell would call desire. So as these begin to be grown or developed within these epochs, these attributes also begin to be established. And sometimes this is what Russell would call the quality of things, not just the quantity, right? That was one of the differentiators that Russell put forth. So again, I wish I would have studied this a bit more. I'm bringing it up because I believe it has to do a lot with what we're talking about. Because, is this, again, one of the base roots of our cosmology? Do we believe that there were epochs in time? Do we believe that the body and the human, that there is a commonality to all humans, that we've all gone through these stages, and that we've had to go through these, and that there was time in the past where the body was not the same as it is today, and in the future it will be different than it is now. And that's what's kind of happening to us right now, that we're going through a very big, the age of Aquarius, where we're changing, and we're really going into the ether stage now, into the Aryan race, where we are becoming part of the ether and part of this information age, where how we communicate is becoming much different.
Like transhumanism.
Well, again, to me, transhumanism is when we begin to,
I was kidding.
well, but I think it's a good point, because within transhumanism, and they talk about it, because it's action, and it's like faith without works is dead. So do we want to skip the works, which is meditation and enlightenment and helping others, or do we want to take ayahuasca and just see the machine elves and skip all the work, right? Or do we want to just, put on
Ayahuasca is not transhumanism, though, is it?
no, but I'm just saying, well, again, I'm saying is you're cheating the process in a way. You might not be, but you could be cheating the process because you don't want to do the work of meditation and inner work to actually get to those levels. I don't know if ayahuasca or, mind altering drugs are necessary, or beneficial, but you're not going through the work, right? And same
I
thing.
don't know. I don't know how that affects the work.
Well,
Not that I'm pushing ayahuasca, but I think it's different than transhumanism.
well, again, transhumanism, you're cheating. You're taking on a purchase, right? You're taking on different things.
Yeah, I think I see it's worse than that, though, for me.
Well, again, worse, better. It's
Evil.
just it's different. Well, again, good and evil are different.
Yeah.
So as we begin to see, as we begin to go through this ascension process, again, is it in our cosmology that we are willing to take on transhumanism in order to what we think ascend? Because it's getting us a greater brain or getting us to see things better. I mean, is that part of what we believe, or do we believe that we do the work ourselves? Right?
Do we have a choice is what I really meant.
Well, I think we all have a choice, right?
Now, if someone forces you to do something, you don't.
Well, again, I think that, again, are we creating our own reality, or are we victims, or
Yes.
are we, right?
Yes.
You got to get back to it, right?
Yes.
So that's what I'm saying. It's very important. Is what is the starting point for your cosmology? Are you a victim? Is it being done to you, or are you doing it to it?
Yeah.
Right?
No. I'm not thinking of myself. I'm thinking of the whole world, but I got to think of myself.
Exactly. It's the only person you can change.
Yeah.
Right?
I wasn't thinking of myself. I was,
Mhm.
which is nuts. Well, I mean, I can't think for other people. I have to think for myself. I have enough trouble doing that.
Okay, so let's go on to the next one here. Okay, so look at here. We got Rudolf Steiner's body map to the spheres, right? We talked about this a bit. Now, I pulled up his chakra and the planets, but it didn't really match Steiner. So then I started looking even more into it. And I pulled up about 30 of these different chakra maps to the planet, and they are all different. So, I don't know, right? But I did want to throw something up just to show that they have mapped. But again, like you said, Doug, until I get into my meditation and really ask my spirit guides and everything, what's going on, who knows? But we will look at Steiner over here. So, and I think that you were talking a bit about this in the chat, you and Giselle earlier on Telegram, about some of these concepts. And one was like Saturn, right? Was a dull consciousness, the spirits of will, the physical body. Okay. And the sun was dreamless sleep, spirits of wisdom, and the etheric body. And the moon was the image consciousness, spirits of motion, and the astral body. Earth is the eye consciousness, because as we come down into form, right, we really consolidate our consciousness into a single entity, which is separate. When we're in the etheric realms, when we're in these other realms, the differentiation between those is not as clear as when we come down and descend into matter. And we become a very unique vessel that is very defined. So that's where we get our eye consciousness. That Jupiter is a self-conscious image, eye on the physical body, spirit man. Venus is self-conscious objects, eye on etheric body, life spirit. And Vulcan, which, only time I ever knew a Vulcan was from Star Trek, right?
All right.
Is spirit consciousness, eye on astral body, spirit self. So these are a little bit more of the descriptions. And again, within the Steiner cosmology, these are all planets that we move through, right? That we've moved through. So I think we've moved through Earth, Jupiter, Venus is our next incarnation, then Vulcan, which will maybe become visible once we get closer to it and it begins to get formed. I don't know. And again, I'm not here because I don't know. I haven't studied it enough to really explain all this. The concepts I'm throwing out right now is just that they exist out there, that Steiner did have a cosmology and a theory, and that we had to move through these planets, And some ascended and some did not. And those ones that didn't are still there, and they still can have effects on us. I don't know if you remember or not when I was showing the diagram, and I'm going to get to it later. Maybe I'll go there right now real quick. But as I showed this diagram, right, Russell talks about the cause here, right, and then the effect. And this was the magnetic light of God, and this was coming into man. But between here and there, what is affecting that signal? Right? What affects that signal before we manifest it into reality? And again, that could be these different spirits or entities or, unascended beings that can affect our consciousness because they still live in the etheric and these other realms.
What is the AEON after each word?
It's an aeon, it's an eon. I mean, Jung wrote a book on this.
Age?
It's like an age, yeah.
I have a question.
Okay.
So I don't know if y'all experience this, but the more I experience unity consciousness,
Mhm.
and by that I mean like I've studied a ton of Eckhart Tolle. I've
Mhm.
spent like long amounts of time in silence, and the more I experience unity consciousness and touch that dimension of our consciousness, the less meaningful this 3D existence becomes. And I think it's because like the less identified with all the ego and all the thought forms and stuff that kind of that create my reality, I guess. So I guess like what I'm seeing here is like, is that just like a phase, or is that like just something we pass through and then it becomes meaningful again? Because to me it's like meaning comes with drama. Either you have drama and pain and stuff which create meaning, or you have love and unity which is like bliss, and there's not a lot of like meaning around that. I don't know.
Well, and again, for me, it's a little bit about, the definition of love. Is love, unicorns and poppies and, lollipops? Or is love having to say no and be seen as being mean, right? Or, so a lot of that is our own projections of what we see as mean or good or evil, or if we're always trying to get to a state of, running in the poppies. The one thing that I've kind of learned from other teachings, especially like even in the Bible, is that we don't learn in that state. We don't learn in a state of bliss. We learn through, I wouldn't say suffering, but through friction and resistance, right? That we come up against something that triggers us or that allows us to have to take action. When we're in bliss, we don't ever have to take action, right? We are just in bliss and we're just kind of, doing whatever.
You can't have bliss unless you have the pain first to know the difference.
Well, and that's kind of the point that I'm making is that, and it's kind of like to the state of perfection, but we know that, it's like we're all trying to get to this, heaven, right? The state of perfection. But we're told the number one law of natural law is evolution, so you can never reach perfection, right? And you're always evolving. You may get to a point that you think's perfection, but then what, right? Then what? You're in an evolutionary period. You're in an evolutionary cycle. So, that's almost like this false carrot that's put out there that we think we're going to get to some state of perfection, but we're in a wave. The wave doesn't stop, right? The wave keeps going. It's either up or down. It's going. So
Well,
at
that's
what
perfection right there.
Yeah, but what point on the wave would you say is my perfection? That's where I'm going to stop, right?
Well, no, all of it's to perfection.
Well, and that's my point. So whether it's challenging or blissful or what we would consider mean or nice, it's the wave, right? It's either in a state of growth or a state of decline. But each are perfection in themselves.
Even what's his name, Russell, he shows you the piece of it. It includes the two parts. I think.
Yeah, we talked about that. Was what was the length of the wave? So
the wave, yeah, I just wanted to say that the wave is the key. I mean, it's you mentioned it before with business. You can't business can't exist in the point of stasis. You don't climb a mountain to stay up at the top. And breathing is in and out and in and out. We go to sleep at night to kind of regenerate, and that point of bliss maybe is something that has to be approached in just like a kind of a short visit at a certain point, in your development. And it seems like spiritual masters are able to go and spend longer and longer times in that state. But it always seems like it's something that you are supposed to come out of, so that you can bring that learning back to your other forms, back to the other part of your life. Yeah, it's like you see, those patterns exist in everything. Yeah, so it's like I hadn't thought about it that way, Grant. So I liked when you brought that up, and it just suddenly felt like it fit in with the rest of what we've talked about.
But what you said, Grant, about as you connect there to, I guess, for me, I'm thinking when you feel this love without borders, I don't know, it's only like brief moments in our lives. Yeah, you look what you have here and it's not so important what's going on here. So it's a step towards detaching from this world, and then the wave, we have to watch where our thoughts are every day. Where's the thread? And when we're out there, we will know what to do. If we're more the observer, more time than not, and then we'll know what to do or say, and it's a practice. It's like, so I know what you're saying about, yeah, as you go forward, depending what's presented to you, you're going to find that, you know what? Do I really care if I go to France this year, or if I see that river, and not that I'm saying I don't like nature, but I'm talking in general, like you kind of realize there's more to this than here. And once you start going in stillness more often inside, you kind of say, wow, there is so much more to discover than what, is happening right now, so I can understand that part for sure.
Yeah, I'm certainly looking to change some patterns. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out what they are. I don't know what they are yet. I think I feel that too, but I also feel like enlivened to figure out what they are. Looking forward to the change.
Right. One thing that struck me is that when I've had conversations with people who have taken the jab in the arm, or their loved ones have, and they're trying to convince them to do it, and I said, well, what are the reasons for saying you should do it? I'll say, well, so we can go to restaurants, or so we can travel,
get back to normal.
Well, just that we can do these things that as we actually ascend, as people are saying, right? Those things don't matter to us that much anymore, right? They begin to fall away.
Oh, it's a comedy.
So, but what you see is the ascension, right? There are those who are going to ascend that are saying the things and the reasons that you're taking action, that your cosmology that you have, right? The reason that you're living the way you live, the fruits of your labor, that what you want is not how I live and not what I value in my life anymore. And so those, determiners, or whatever we want to call them, those drivers aren't driving me to take this action. I've changed my outlook. I've changed my perception. I've changed my body. I am no longer just in the physical Greek mindset and body. I'm now changing that. And I think, you know, that's what I'm trying to really develop here is what are we all trying to say and what are we all trying to accomplish now?
What's the
And
Greek?
the Greek part would going back to, like I said, to the Mars, going back to the Mars a bit, to where it's all about the body. It's all about the thinking. It's all about, you know, kind of pleasuring the body in a sense, you know. I mean, the Greeks went to the Romans who were really into that, right? But you had the Epicureans who were the same way that came out of the Greek culture that were all about eat, you know, drink and be merry, right? That's what their life was about. Now, you know, where does that get you? Well, get you fat, dumb, and happy. If that's what you want, that's what you got, right? But that doesn't last long because once disease sets in because of that lifestyle, you're no longer happy. So let's move on next to the next, so we can keep this within a decent time frame. So who are the gods of Venus? Who are the gods of Venus and Mars? I think, you know, most people have probably heard of the book, you know, Women Are from Venus and Men Are from Mars, but Gigi Young talks about this a bit, and so I kind of wanted to cover it a bit. So what she says is Venus beings come to Earth to help Earth evolve into the next ascension. Again, it's the idea that we have these beings that are coming from off-world planets or from areas that they've already been at, and they're coming to help us. And they help us to evolve. Venus beings have a companion relationship with humans. Venus beings can only teach and instruct. They cannot rule or have positions of authority. Venusians first arrived to Earth during the Lemurian age, approximately 15 million years ago. So a Venusian being that comes to Earth would never say, worship me. He'd never say, I'm in control. He would never run for president. He would never be a king. He'd never be an emperor. He'd never be any of those things. He or she or it, whatever we want to call it, would never have those attributes. They'd be not even a teacher. They'd be more of a helper. No, they're more of a helper, actually. I don't know if they'd actually be a servant, but they would say, you know, here's how we do it. Here's how we've done it. This is, you know, and you can, you know, take it as it resonates. Probably be one of their great sayings, right? Rather than you have to do this or you have to do this. They would be helpers. Yes, I would say they'd be helpers, Grant. But I think they would also have boundaries because they are an ascended being and they would know how to set boundaries.
Why is she bluish?
Well, that's a he. That's actually Krishna.
Ah,
and
how you doing, Krishna?
But again, it's the idea of the man-woman body, right? The hermaphrodite in a sense. Not that they have genitalia; it's hermaphroditic, but that that they kind of look effeminate. They have bluish skin because their sun is different, supposedly, on Venus, and so when it gets into our sun, it's a different resonance and a different vibration and different. So
there's also something about how they, because of their etheric quality, their relationship with water, they came in through the aqueous forms of the. I'm getting pulled away. I may not be able to make it to 6 o'clock.
Who is Shiva related to? Is that like Buddha or something? Is it related?
Shiva's within the Vedic tradition, and that would be part of these blue gods.
It's from the Indian people?
From what I understand, yeah. Again, I'm not a great scholar on that, but I would say yes.
Yeah, I know nothing about it, obviously.
Yeah, it's a Hindu, right?
Yes. So then and then from that, you know, we also get the Venusians kind of looking like this, you know, kind of very fair, almost elfish, you know, if you look at like the Tolkien stories, almost an elfish type of appearance, but with bluer skin. And then Gigi talks about what the Mars beings were, right? So the Mars beings came to Earth to war and dominate humans. So they have the, you know, like the Aryan, when we say Aryan, Aries, right? They're more like Aries, god of war, fight, war mentality. They came to dominate humans. They do not have empathy for humans. They don't care. I don't care how you feel, right? You just do it, right? You serve me. I don't care how you feel. I don't have any empathy for you whatsoever. They are from a previous era of Earth's evolution. They demand to be worshipped like the Greek, Roman, and Nordic gods. So within Gigi Young, she's saying that we have these different beings that do come to Earth, and this is kind of the differentiator between the two. Is are they when this god or this other being comes to Earth, is he saying or she saying, I am a god and you have to worship me? You know, I'm better than you, and you have to take, and I'm here to teach you these things? Or is it more of a symbiotic relationship where we're both equals and we are learning from one another? Because the idea is that these Venusians actually are coming to Earth to relearn things that they've forgotten, because they've forgotten the density of our matter. They were here, they evolved, but then they've lost the teachings because it's been a long time for them. So they're having to come back to kind of relearn, to take summer school, you know, because they may have forgotten what they were taught. So again, this is kind of an interesting concept, that there's two different beings, because we can maybe see some of this in our world today, that there are those leaders that we've talked about that are more of the command and control, right? And there are those that are more of the symbiotic and equal teaching. Again, I don't know if it's true. It's just a concept that Gigi was talking about. So let's get back to Blavatsky, right? So who's Blavatsky say, right, are these rulers of our race? One of the areas she talks about are the one-eyed gods, the Cyclops. There's, you know, some pictures of these guys down here. One has a third eye that's open. One just has a single eye. And then you look at Odin. I don't know if you were aware of it, but, you know, even in the Marvel movies, he has the eye patch on, right? He lost an eye. He only has a one-eyed, so he's also considered a one-eyed god. So under this heading, the ancients placed the various natural impulses and cosmic laws. They said that these were one-eyed because they were neither good nor evil. The two eyes presupposing polarity. The ancients taught that natural law was no respecter of persons, performing its labors intelligently but without partiality or feeling. Therefore, they named them one-eyed giants. So the concept of the one-eyed God is that there is no good and evil. Cosmic law goes forward without empathy, right? It just is. Don't take it personal. It's just a law. Not that I don't love you. It's just a law. And for the law to work, it has to be obeyed and has to be followed. And we can't have different circumstances for different people. It's just a law. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I know we're trying to open the third eye again. When we meditate often enough, it's anyway, sometime I can feel something. I mean, I know there are people that tell me that they can see through their inner eye, I'll call it. Mm-hmm. I know these giants, these one-eyed gods, I can kind of see what they're kind of saying, that it's because of the law, you know, the law of evolution. As we went down in the physical more, we ended up atrophying. This went inside or whatever, it disappeared, and we got these two eyes that came out. But now we went down very far. Now we're on our way up. So we're meant to develop, doesn't mean it's going to go physical like this. We need to develop the inner eye. It's coming. So anyway.
Anyone else? Do you think that when we develop this third eye that we will actually no longer see good and evil?
We will be able to discern better. Let me put it this way. Good and evil, it's not what we think. I mean, you know what I mean? It's I don't even think of things as good and evil. Like, it's like it happens because of ignorance, of level of understanding. Let me put it this way. Something that used to be useful to us in those times are no longer useful today. And we call that evil, but in the times of whatever, maybe that was normal in the time of the ancient or our descendants, but today we would not accept it. So yeah, we could say that was evil, but should we really say it that way? It's more, just level of understanding. Like as we get more light in us and we understand more, we go forward. Sorry. So yeah, anyway, so I'm not I just think with that developing this, we will see reality as it should be. So yeah, I guess you could say we won't be seeing this duality, whatever. It's another way to say it.
Any more comments on the one-eyed gods of the ancients? Again, this is from Blavatsky. This is from Manly Viol.
I thought that the third eye was your crown.
No, it's actually here.
Yeah, it's called the Ajna Center as well, but inside, like yeah. Anyway,
Paul calls it that it's at the crown. He's actually, that's why they shaved that piece of their head, the monks.
Well, that's not the third eye. That's actually how they receive information.
the crown, you get access, like the will of God comes there, like it's a will that comes from the top, if you like. Yeah, but what you're saying, you're right. There are things about where was it actually located. Okay, so in this picture they're showing in the front, but it was really more when you look at, I think it was in Manly P Hall or in some other ones that I've read, it was more yeah, maybe it was more towards the back. It was like, but it still was a one eye. They could actually see at the back and the front because it was kind of positioned a certain way. So it may not be exactly as these pictures are shown. Yeah.
He actually said that children between the ages of 2 and 5 still have the sutures, and that you could see it.
That's like this. We're talking about like the soft spot in the brain.
I don't know. I have to look at it again. I'll send you when I find it. I mean, you actually said specifically, no, about the the other connection before, when children are born, they're still connected to the previous, world.
So like the umbilical cord to the etheric realm.
Yeah, I'll send you the piece of it because he said it like in a little thing. I'll scan it, send it to you. Because it's certainly confusing now.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about karma and ascension now. So we've kind of gone around and around, and we've looked at, action, and we've looked at some James, and we've looked at some Eckhart Tolle, and talked about these ideas of gods and one-eyed gods. And so karma is a Sanskrit word meaning action. It refers to a cycle of cause and effect. So if we go back to what Russell, cause, God's imagining, effect is matter, right? Ascension is a process of moving beyond the karmic cycle. To ascend, you must pay off all of your karmic debt so that you will not incarnate into a physical form in your next lifetime. It is not an easy thing to do. This is from Mind Valley, by the way. An easy thing to do, but it's what many are trying to achieve. It's important to also understand the idea of higher selves when thinking about ascension. This is the belief that while our souls occupy our physical bodies, we also have a part of us that is outside of our physical selves. This part of us always in communication with us, trying to guide us to a higher path. To ascend is to merge with your higher self. When you consistently choose to take the higher path, making every choice out of compassion and kindness, you will pay off your karmic debt, end your reincarnation cycle, and merge with your higher self outside your physical body. So this is kind of like where people believe about the karmic cycle. But when we look at Russell, or when we look at Steiner, we're going to keep moving to different worlds. We're not going to end the karmic cycle. The idea is not to get to a point where we leave our physical bodies. We ascend into our next perfect body, or our next incarnation of that body. But we're never going to get back, as far as I can see, and maybe from what, if you look at Steiner and you look at some of these other, even Russell, he's not saying that we're going to get to some place where we're back to a spirit being again. because it's in the physical body where we can take action, right? It's where we can affect others. It's very tough for one spirit to hold another, right, in an embrace. Only the humans can do that. So there's benefits to, I mean, there's a different experience to having a physical body. And to say that I only want to become a spirit now, that I want to get rid of this thing because it's evil or dirty or it dies or whatever, or that I've
Fire.
fallen into this, right? Is this really what we believe the karmic cycle is? Or is karma really our actions that we take? And it's not that in our next life we really pay the debt for it, but the lesson that we learned that we didn't learn because we didn't pay the debt, when we chose a different path, we now have to pay. Because in order to ascend, we have to do what we didn't want to do the last time. Any thoughts on that?
I'm
Okay.
hoping that by the actions that I take, that I will not be repeating the same thing over and over. I want to do better things, or be more in line with the universe and or the purpose of so that I can help others and we can all go. I don't see ascension as a person only. It's as a group of beings doing that step together. So, but definitely it's action, cause and effect for sure. We can see it. You know, when we fall always on the same thing, we eventually choose something different next time, eh? I hope.
Hopefully, right?
Any more comments? All right. Who's somebody talking?
You.
I can't hear you. I can't hear you, Grant. Okay, so we're going to move on to natural law. This is back from to Blavatsky and to Manly P. Hall. And the question is, how may man assist natural law? And the answer was that Manly P. Hall gave was first by understanding the law, and then by putting it into application. So again, taking action. Once we understand the law, which in order to understand the law, we have to understand our own cosmology. We have to understand what we take. Again, as we've talked about earlier, is it being done to me or am I doing it, right? What is my understanding of natural law? Then once I understand what my understanding of natural law is, because I'm the only one who can make law for myself. Because what my law says is what I do. I don't do anything that's outside my law. I either do it with my consent or I do it with my action. And that is my law. That is my sovereign spiritual law. So what is
to your action? What?
I either don't take action, I consent to what's happening, or I take action to change what's happening. I can say I'm going to stay home or I'm going to go outside.
Yes.
Right? I can consent to stay home. I'm not really taking any action. I am taking action by staying home, but I'm not taking the action of that my sovereign spiritual soul wants to take. I'm consenting to whatever someone else has told me to do, to the mandates. Right?
Yes.
So we have to first understand what natural law means to us. What is our natural law? What is our sovereign law that governs me, right? And then put that into application, take action. By living according to nature and her plan, she may eliminate nearly all of the inharmony which claims the ignorant. Tomorrow is modeled by today. Buddha said, effects follow causes as the wheels of a cart follow the feet of the oxen. Next to evolution in importance is the law of cause and effect. No law is more just than this last, but none seems as unjust when viewed by an individual who is being forced by nature to pay old bills. Any thoughts on that from Manly P. Hall and Blavatsky?
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
All right, sorry, I've had some internet issues.
Okay.
So yeah, I think that's spot on. I don't think karma is something that you have to really like. If you, karma in the way that we think of it is like everything's recorded on like a docket and you got to pay it back. It's all like if you eat vegan and you're eating really good food, you're gonna get a flat belly and you're gonna feel really good. It's like what you put out, you get back, kind of thing. So I like that because it takes away the drama of this like Catholic guilt that I have of having to like please God or something.
So is it interesting to anybody that it's funny because there's often things of what the two greatest laws are, right? And within this one, the two greatest laws are the law of evolution, which has no judgment, right? Which is it's just the wave. And the law of cause and effect. There's no guilt, there's no sin, it's just, what you put out is what you get back. It may not come back immediately, but it will come back.
Which is what we learned with Walter Russell, because we're only seeing one part of the wave. We don't know that, well, if we could see further than this life right now, we could see a lot more things that we've done that we have to adjust, if you like. But at the end of the day, it's a cause and effect thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And I like to say not life, but this incarnation, right?
Yeah.
For this, because the life is always, right? It's
going.
Endless. Yeah.
It keeps going.
But this incarnation, if we could see to the end of our incarnations, right, or past this incarnation. And I think that's really what the ancients did look at much more. And I think that if the world looked at technology as future incarnations and as what effect this technology would have on those future incarnations, it would change our approach to technology. I think a lot of the disruption we have now and a lot of the misuse of technology we have is because it's so short term. I mean, now everything's looked at as a very short term solution, right, for today. And we're not looking at what is that going to have? Where is that wave going to go in the future? What effects is it going to have on our future incarnations?
It's also very, when you look at technology today, it's very, they've gone so specific. It's like a scientist going down all the time at the atomic level. Like they want to monitor every single thing externally, which is just the facts. When do we really need to know all that to know that we're feeling good? I'm just saying, I should know myself if I'm in good, if I'm balanced or whatever. I don't need all these tools, if you like, to tell me how many steps I've done today, how is my heart rate, stupid stuff. Sorry. I mean, anyway, and the doctors, they don't need it either. If they were taught properly, they don't need this. They don't need all these tests and this and that to know when. Go for all these series of tests to make a decision. If they were taught, they're not taught properly. So technology or the way we're being learning or they learned has to be unlearned.
And that's really almost gets back to what Doug was saying about the lies, right? Because when we do all this test, it's just history.
Yep.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
We're looking at history and trying to project a future from the history.
Yeah.
And you go to any stockbroker and tell you that the historical of the past cannot predict the future. But that's how we try to predict what's going on and what's going to happen. So we actually need this spiritual side, right? Which is the intuition side, which actually has told us why things happen. not just the effect. It tells us the cause. As we get back to this diagram, it tells us the cause, and by the cause we can determine the effect, not by looking at the effect and then trying to emulate the cause. We go to cause first, and then we can produce effect. We don't look at effect and try to determine cause. We know cause. Cause is the God's imagining. And that is the difference really between scientism and mysticism, is that mysticism knows the cause. Science only knows the effect, and they try to guess at the cause. Mysticism knows the cause, and they know what the effect, what will happen in the effect if this right here, and we are mindful of this. If we're not mindful of this, then this can become chaos and erratic. Just as in this diagram here that I pulled up, it's cause and effect, right? You push one domino, and eventually it's going to push you. All there is to it.
Well, you could get up.
Well, you could get up, but I don't think he's going to get up. Get out of the way.
Yeah.
Do you think alchemy is going to be the next? Do you think that's going to come back as the next like science that we're going to be looking at again?
Well, I don't think, for me, you're asking me, Grant? You know, I've taken, I'm not a big alchemist. I mean, I've taken some courses in alchemy. Again, I think as G.G. Young, as some other people state, that our body's changing, right? Our incarnation's changing, our reality's changing. So I think our alchemy is going to change. I don't think our alchemy that we are going to partake in the future is going to be the same that was taken by the Enlightenment or the, you know, it's
The
going to be
mineral alchemy that they
it's going to be a wave alchemy. You know, we have found the philosopher's stone, which is what Russell calls the wave, right? Within the wave lies the secret of creation. And we have many ways of producing the wave now without having to distill and burn and do these things that they did, right? I mean, we have orgone, right? Which is really just I mean, when you look at biogeometry, orgone, they're basically the same thing. One is using the minerals and the shapes and the materials to create a resonance that is a wave. So where, say, when you make spirit-gerics, right, or alchemy, you're taking the plant and you're reducing it down into its three components, basically, and then to its purest self. And then you're going to ingest that. And why are you ingesting it? You're ingesting that to actually receive the resonance of what you've created. So if we want to receive a resonance, can we do that through the wave, through form, through material, through our minds, right? Or do we actually have to do a physical process to do that? And what Walter's saying is that, you know, we can transmute these materials. We can manufacture them ourselves through our mind. We don't need to create the philosopher's stone through an alchemical, you know, we can do it through almost a virtual process now.
It's funny. Did you see the thing that Bear had on the site today about colloidal silver?
No.
Actually, it has no silver in it. It was just, it imitates it.
Yeah, it's just the resonance.
Yeah, it was the same. It's exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, and I make colloidal silver that way with my Rife generators. You just take the pieces of silver and you hook it up to the frequency generator and you stick it in there.
No. The whole point is there's no silver in it, though.
Yeah, again, the silver is not going into the water. You're taking the frequency of the silver and placing that in the water.
But it becomes little tiny particles break into the water when you do it that way.
No, they don't. They don't really know, because that wouldn't be enough. They'd just sink to the bottom. They wouldn't infuse into the whole water. They would just be at the bottom. So what it is, you're taking the frequency of that and generating that and releasing the frequency into the whole water. So you can do that. I mean, you can do it with any kind of frequency, and that's why I'm into scalar, because scalar, when I put a substance on a plate, the transmuting plate, it will transmute that into the scalar wave, which is an informational field.
Right.
And so,
And
and
so I
so,
have ionic silver that says it's 20 parts per million. I mean, there's actually silver in it.
and I have silver sparegerics that I got from Robert Bartlett, right?
And there's nothing in it. I mean,
No, he actually took silver and went through the process. I mean, he did mineral alchemy.
right. Well,
And
so I'm saying that they made it like a fake one though, without it, and it works just as well.
yeah,
That's
exactly.
what I was getting at. Just what
Yeah.
you were saying.
Yeah. So yes. So do I think that alchemy is going to be the future? Yes, but it's going to look different than the alchemy of the past. Just as I think that the occult schools will look different than the past, that the resonance and the technologies that we move into, that those that choose to move into this will, because like I said, I know that the more energy I work with, the more types of energy I work with, the more energy I can feel and sense and see. And kind of the answers that I now intuit are energy based, because that's becoming part of my cosmology, right? And that's becoming part of me. And I do think that that is going to be the future for us. And I think that the people that aren't going to ascend, that are going to become transhumanists, or going to become part of that other side, are going to be much more physically based. That everything's, because to actually embrace the germ model, you have to be totally physically based. That
Yep.
everything's a chemical reaction, not a spiritual reaction. And I don't know if you guys saw what I posted on Alphabetic today from the PubMed about that. They're actually looking at this now. They're actually seeing
Yes,
that,
I did. I saw that.
that there are, I mean, this is in PubMed, right? That there's
Yes.
morphic fields, and they're
Yep.
saying that the cells are sensing this. It's not
Very
chemical,
cool.
And so I think that those of us as humans who begin to develop this new energy body, it might be a new type of body, that's not etheric, that's actually, some type of resonance body that feels energy more. That could be what we're developing in this next phase. I don't know.
Hopefully resonance is what we're hoping is where they go, right?
Well, this week, tomorrow is Thursday. I'm attending. I've done a few in the last year or so. It's like a biotuning with a group of people. This person is in New Zealand, and we're going up. She's using certain bowls, certain frequency, and we're going to just listen to this, and it's going to, I guess, work on us. So there's a lot more going on like that.
It's cool.
It's kind of nice to clear and
it's like a model when Masura, the Chinese guy, when he had people around the world
yes.
focusing on some polluted lake in Israel or something. And they changed it. Pretty wild stuff.
So hopefully I answered your question, Grant. Is that good for you?
Yeah, satisfied.
Okay, that's good. This is one thing that I wanted to discuss a bit about, just as an ending, and we went a little bit long, but it's okay. But this was from the Oregon donor site, and he referenced this fellow who wrote this series of books, and it's calling "Break the Occult Spell of Consent," and what can man do to break the spell. So it says, I hereby revoke and rescind any and all oaths, vows, commitments, energetic ties, contracts, written or oral, that I, as a living being in my true capacity, have ever taken upon myself in this life or any other life, that are not in alignment with me here and now. They are hereby revoked and rescinded ab intitio to or from the beginning, nunc pro tunc, now for then, and if they never were. Additionally, I forgive myself for accepting and allowing any and all hexes, schemes, or constructs that I consented to or brought into that sustain the illusion of all that I have learned and discovered in this work and the next, and in this life and the next. So again, within your cosmology, as you begin to develop it, and this is sometimes where people say, well, you've changed. Well, yeah, I've changed. I've gotten new data. What I believed as a child, I don't think I should still believe as a man, or what I believe as an adolescent, or as a 50-year-old man, should I still believe as a 60-year-old man? Who knows, right? New data's come in. I've learned. I've grown. I can't, right? If I believe the same thing I believed yesterday, am I evolving, right? Probably not, right? So at some point in time, you may want to just draw a line in your life and say something like this, right?
This shit works.
Just to say that I am manifesting this today, whatever I agreed to or believed in or allowed yesterday, I am disavowing today, right? I am a new man. I'm a new creation today. This is what I believe,
It's like a new baptism.
Exactly. Exactly. And the Christians do it, right, when they take the oath of faith or whatever. But they say you only have to do it once. But that's because within their cosmology, once you do that, you're saved and forever saved. And that gets into a whole other realm of
really.
Yeah, exactly.
You can transform. You can change again. So
Yeah.
we can decide that.
Yeah, and again, because it's the law of nature, right? It's the number one law, right?
Natural law, no?
Of evolution, right? You're always changing, of natural law, correct?
And they're using this in courts now too, though. It's amazing.
Well, you can go in and rescind anything. You can take a credit card and say, I rescind that, and they'll have a hard time collecting, I'll tell you right now.
Yeah, no, they're doing it. I mean, there's a couple of sites. The Alphon site is unbelievable.
And so I just wanted to put this up there just because, again, we can pray and we can meditate and we can do things in our etheric level, but there's things that we can actually do, in the physical world, and to understand that there are word spells and there are things that, and whether or not we're creating them or not, we still are bound by them, right? We're still bound, and we can unbind ourselves to them.
Oh, we're all fucking slaves.
Yep, and we're slaves to ourselves, right? Because we're creating it.
We're allowing it. Yeah.
Yeah, and so we can forgive. Like here, I forgive myself.
I took a copy.
Right, I forgive myself because I am the son. Right here, I got this. This text is taken from the book Spirit World, the Blackest of All Magic with a K by Dylan Saccio.
But is there a site that you went to and saw this?
Yeah, that was the guy's site for the Orgone from Alphabetic.
What's his name? Mitch?
Yeah, I think it was Mitch.
The Orgone Donor?
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that guy.
Okay, so this is on his site.
Good.
under trainings or something that's there, or
There's a couple of new guys too. The copper guy. Have you seen the copper stuff that was in there today? Amazing.
So
what's that?
It's all these different things to help you protect against the EMF. All these different tools.
It's orgone technology using copper and shape to create waves, to create the waves.
To harmonize the 5G. It harmonizes EMF so they don't fuck with you. They don't hurt you. I got it all over the place. I'm nuts.
It's very similar.
Doug, I'm going to reach out to you. We're going to rap about this later.
Sure.
So again, just to wrap this up, because this is ending up our spiritual journey of the occult. Hopefully it's been beneficial. We tried to start off with where do I begin, and now we're saying how then shall I live, right? And we had a couple of episodes in the middle where we just discussed Blavatsky and the timeline and what's happened with the human race within our cosmology, within our incarnation, within our body type, right? Within how we are today as humans and where we're going. So with that, I'm going to be probably out next week because my house is closing in the Rogue River.
Congratulations.
And I might be going up there to get the keys. So for right now, we're going to cancel, and we'll start back with Russell on part 2. Finally, right? 20 weeks later, and we'll start with that. And I'll send out the questions again, and I'll touch bases on Telegram with where all that is. Okay.
Thank you.
Great.
So I'm going to stop recording now. Then we can talk a little bit more.